everybody, this is Doc coming to you on Sunday, March 25th. It is Doc's Racing Digest right here live on YouTube. It's a show for racing fans, put on by a racing fan. And if you saw all the technological difficulties I seem to have week in and week out with this show, you truly understand it is put on by a fan. But this is the show where we cover everything and anything involving horse racing, and we are going to jump right into it right now with two wonderful W words, the first of which is wonderful, and the second of which is Winx. A filly, or mare I should say at this point, that has just broken a record that many thought would never be broken. Let's take a look.
It's $1 million race, and we will find out after this whether she goes overseas. They're lined up, lodging the timekeeper, and they're off and racing in the Group 1, the Agency George Ryder Stakes. $1 million, 1,500 metres. Winx begins well with Z straight back, going straight on his Invincible Gem, leads by a length and a half. Happy Clapper in second placing, a length and a half to Crack Me Up in third position. In fourth spot, then about a neck away. On the outside is Kementari, the 3-year-old, and they're going at absolute saunter through the early stages. Cantering, 2 lengths clearly innocent, the yellow sleeves and cap, and Winx is on the outside, 3 back in the running line. About 5.5 lengths first to last, and it's Invincible Gem leading them down the side in the rider by just under a length or so. Length and a half now to Happy Clapper Maximum in second place. 2 lengths away, Crack Me Up third, Kementari fourth. Winx has advanced past Clearly Innocent, who's at the rear of the sextet, 6.5 lengths off Invincible Gem, who leads them down the side then. Having every chance here for Zach Purton by a length and a half to Happy Clapper. 2 lengths to Kementari, the 3-year-old in third. And here comes Winx under that famous hand cannon, now booming up on the outside and about to be asked to win the race. And then Crack Me Up and Clearly Innocent into the straight. Invincible Gem, 2 lengths in front, giving a great sight. But here goes Winx. She went straight past Kementari, followed by Happy Clapper. Winx on the outside is hard ridden, but she moves up to Happy Clapper, followed then by Invincible Gem. Winx starts to get the upper hand. She's proved herself in this country. Oh, please take her overseas. Winx wins the George Ryder 3 years running. She didn't win by very far, but she won hands and heels a half to 3 parts. Happy Clapper, what a run in second. Kementari was 3 parts away.
You have just got to love a horse like Winx, and kudos to her owners and her trainer. They bring her back year after year, 17 in a row Grade 1, Group 1 victories. Just an absolutely amazing mare. A lot of people in the U.S., at least, that don't follow mainstream racing haven't heard of her because she's been racing down under, but hopefully after that win we will see her travel a little bit, perhaps up to Royal Ascot. That would be an amazing thing to see. I think the big matchup that... Yeah, hold on one second here as I just have to close this down. Sorry about that. Basically, we, as I was saying, everything that we want to see potentially could happen at Royal Ascot. You've got the ARC winner from last year and Winx, and the two of them going at it, Enable and Winx. That would just be a matchup for the ages. And who knows, it might actually happen at Royal Ascot. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. But as we kind of cheater along here, not too many Derby preps going on this weekend, but there was one yesterday and was one that just finished running now that I will go over in a second. But first we are going to take a look at the Louisiana Derby. This was where we were going to see if horses like My Boy Jack was for real. Bravazzo, who came in and won the Risen Star very gamely, would he be able to duplicate? You know, a lot of different stories there, a lot of horses jostling for that 100 points and, you know, lower. So let's take a look at what happened in the Louisiana Derby yesterday at the fairgrounds.
Ready? They're in the gate. And they're off on the TwinSpires.com Louisiana Derby. Retirement fund broke well toward the inside. First time blinkered Noble Indy in the orange cap. And Marmello, the maiden in their midst, is vying for the early pace with Noble Indy, who's keen as they head toward the first turn. The Risen Star winner Bravazzo in third position. Retirement fund joined out wide by Snapper Sinclair, who's floated out to the 5 path as they round the first turn. Give Me a Minute saving ground, then Heinford toward the inside. Lone Sailor Dark Templar is posted 3 wide, and My Boy Jack is in the back of the pack. The opening quarter, 22.97 seconds, and the leader is Marmello for Jack Gilligan. Marmello out in front at those astronomical odds with 5 furlongs to go. Noble Indy right there shadowing the front runner for John Velasquez. It's Marmello, Noble Indy. Bravazzo is in the clear on the outside. The Louisiana bred, Give Me a Minute, closer toward the rail, running in 4th. Snapper Sinclair is 5th and 6th from the front. Lone Sailor gains toward the inside. Retirement Fund in tight quarters between horses, some 7 for the lead. The trailers are Heinford and wide. Dark Templar has dropped back to 10th. A half mile in 46.61 seconds. Noble Indy took the lead as Mormello's dropped back 3 furlongs to go. It's Noble Indy who leads by 2.5. To Give Me a Minute. Snapper Sinclair in the red cap is now gaining ground. Bravazzo needs to pick up on the far outside. Lone Sailor starts to gain. Here's Lone Sailor's bid. My Boy Jack is the wide out for Kent DeSormo. Then Heinford into the stretch. 3/4 in 1 minute 11.47 seconds. Stay inside is My Boy Jack. My Boy Jack is coming with a long run. Lone Sailor looks to battle. My Boy Jack in the final furlong. Noble Indy toward the inside. Give Me a Minute. Then Snapper Sinclair. It's Lone Sailor, Noble Indy, My Boy Jack toward the rail. Noble Indy and Lone Sailor. Noble Indy to win the Louisiana Derby from Lone Sailor in a photo finish. My Boy Jack loomed at the quarter pole, was third. Give Me a Minute, Snapper Sinclair. We trail back to Heinford with Retirement Fund. Not today for Bravado.
Oh, there you go. Noble Indy looking very, very game, coming back on the rail then. The addition of blinkers obviously did seem to help this horse. Johnny V certainly got an education in that race. Was concerned about it being a little too keen right up at the beginning. My Boy Jack certainly ran a very game race, coming in third there. Was spun out basically to the parking lot on the far turn. And who knows, maybe just flying that wide, going that fast, just took a little bit out of his stretch kick. But it'll be interesting to see where both of these horses go next, as nobody is quite sure. And obviously Noble Indy now, that's definitely put him in the starting gate. Probably pretty good for My Boy Jack as well. And we're going to be very interesting to see where Pletcher and DeSormo decide to put those two horses coming up. And we just have a little bit of breaking news here. That's what I was checking as that race was running, because as we were coming on the air here, they were running the Sunland Derby, and I am going to check here, and the winner actually was Runaway Ghost. Trained by Todd Fincher and ridden by Tracy Herbert. And second in there was Dream Baby Dream from the Asmussen barn. So those were the top two there in the Sunland Derby. Again, those have points on the Triple Crown Trail as well. So now the points get really, really interesting. You know, these seconds and thirds, they may not be enough to get a horse into the starting gate. So, as I said, the next couple of races are really going to be crucial. This is going to get down to crunch time. We've only really got about 6 weeks till the Derby now, maybe a little bit less. And there's only a handful, really, of major preps, and a lot of those happen on April 7th with the Wood Memorial, or the 6th, whatever that Saturday is. Actually, you know what? I can check my NYRA calendar right behind me and tell you guys, because I have it right here. It actually is the 7th. So that would be the Wood Memorial, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Arkansas Derby, I believe, are all run that day. And, you know, a lot of big stakes cards on all of those races, so those are going to be the big races that everybody's going to look forward to. So, you know, that's kind of what's been happening on the Triple Crown Trail this week. Now we're going to take a look at one of the older horse races that also happened to be run at the fairgrounds yesterday, the New Orleans Handicap, and this was the return of Good Samaritan, who burst onto the scene really as a potential top 3-year-old right around the time of the Travers last year. Kind of fizzled a little bit in the Travers, never really reached his dirt potential after being transferred from the turf, but he is back now as a 4-year-old, supposedly bigger and stronger for the Billy Mott barn, and let's see how he did against an up-and-coming horse named The Player, who won the Mineshaft Handicap very, very impressively. They squared off right here in the New Orleans Handicap, and here is how it went.
They're in the gate. They're off in the New Orleans Handicap. Toward the inside, The Player, Hand Sense, Scuba up between horses. Hollywood Handsome takes back, and Good Samaritan. And the White Silks dropping back to last as they head toward the first turn, where The Player leads on the rail for Calvin Burrell. It's The Player out in front, leads Hand Sense. Toward the inside is Scuba with Hollywood Handsome. And here in the early stages, Good Samaritan trails the Grade 2 quintet as they go to the back of the track. The Player has established a clear lead out in front of Hand Sense by 2. Hand Sense follows the leader there for Joe Bravo, Florent Giroux, and Scuba third, nestled in toward the rail. With Jose Ortiz, Hollywood Handsome is running second to last, and under Joel Rosario's hands, Good Samaritan remains fifth and last. The first 2 of 9 furlongs for The Player. In 23.88 seconds, they head toward the half-mile pole. It's The Player for the Hall of Famer. Now Scuba injecting more pace into The Player. And Hand Sense joins in the 3 path as they go to 4 furlongs from home in the New Orleans Handicap. On the outside is Hollywood Handsome for Jose Ortiz, and Hollywood at 14-1, still second to last, and Good Samaritan trails. It's 15 lengths from leaders to last, with 3 furlongs to go. Between horses, Scuba, taken on by Handsense. The player needs to rally on toward the inside. Hollywood Handsome right there, and here comes Hollywood, and Good Samaritan is now picking up for Joel Rosario as the player is now being eased up by Calvin Burrell into the stretch. 3/4 in 1 minute 11.85 seconds. On the outside, it's Hollywood Handsome, who's looking for an upset here with 1 more furlong to go. Good Samaritan now descends on Hollywood Handsome. Scuba, then Handsense. It's Good Samaritan past the 16th for Joel Rosario, and Good Samaritan is sailing away from them. Good Samaritan takes out the New Orleans Handicap by 3. Hollywood Handsome was second, Scuba third, and Handsense was last of 4 to finish as the player was pulled up.
So as you can see there, Good Samaritan obviously running a very courageous race and just blowing him by them there, and definitely a great start to his 4-year-old season. It'll be interesting to see where he goes next. Perhaps the Oaklawn Handicap, rather, or maybe they'll hold off, run him on a stakes, maybe the Alashiba or something like that, up at Churchill during Derby week. The player, obviously, we did see there pull up sharply on the turn into the stretch. He did suffer 2 sesamoid fractures in his right front leg. The good news is that they were able to stabilize him on the track and get a splint on. He's currently at Louisiana State University resting comfortably, and tomorrow they are going to perform what is known as an arthrodesis, or a fusion of the joint surgery, basically to give him a shot at hopefully surviving. So we will keep you abreast of what's going on with him. Condolences in some ways to Buff Bradley's barn, but I know they're doing the best that they can for him. They won't let him suffer, but really kudos for going all out and trying to save the horse. So we'll know more hopefully come tomorrow afternoon after the surgery is done. And you know, these are very tedious type surgeries when you're dealing with horses, especially something as in-depth as an arthrodesis surgery. You know, a lot can go wrong and a lot can go right. So it's you know, it's going to be pins and needles for a little bit, I think, for a lot of us, hoping that the player can pull through.
Racing. Massive wins for the Tiger in the Classic. Gates fly. It's Watson. 1, 2, 3. One-man band is it all of the way. The Zero Band reels in Big Orange, and the Zero Band too good. Racing in the Derby. Lani in front. It's Japan's Derby. Lani has beaten Polar in front. Life is great in the Sunshine State, and those Queenslanders are celebrating. It's a duel in the Dubai Golden Shaheen. Japan again. Real Steel. Real Steel beat Euro Charlene. And Postponed is too good. Postponed wins the Dubai Shiba Classic. Gates fly in racing in the Dubai World Cup. It's Alchemy in Dubai. Chrome turns to gold. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
I don't think there is a spectacle in sport that is quite like Meydan on Dubai World Cup night. I would love to at some point get out there and experience it myself, but I'm told from everybody who's been out there and just you just watch even the track feeds and things, it just has to be an absolutely unbelievable experience, that entire card of racing. And it is coming up in under a week now. It's actually coming up next Saturday, the 31st. And we wanted to take a look a little bit. A lot of the U.S. horses now, most of them have shipped over. I believe they got there on Wednesday. And you know, obviously our strongest hands, as usual, are in the dirt races, and we're going to take a look right now at some of the prospective cards. And now these are not necessarily the actual fields. This was put out by the Pollock Report, which is actually a really great synopsis of who's potentially running in what races. And of course, the Pollock Report is just a great publication in general. Everybody should check it out. It's very great reporting on the sport, and definitely looks at all facets of the sport, which is really great, and that's something, you know, we need more of in racing media today. So we're going to take a little look. Let's see what we got here. Starting with with the Godolphin Mile, and let's pull this up here. And really, this, looks like it's probably going to, be taken over by mostly foreign horses, or horses that are based outside of the U.S. There is one horse in here from the U.S., Chad Brown, horse, Economic Bottle, coming off an impressive stakes win down at Gulfstream, so we'll just have to see how he does over there, but, wishing him the best of luck. Next, we're going to move on to the Dubai Golden Shaheen. And this is one where really, this is our bread and butter, baby. This is sprinting on the dirt. And really, we've probably got one of the strongest hands in this race as we've had for a while. You've got Roy H. Mind Your Biscuits going for that repeat. He did win last year in that famous call, "Here Comes Biscuits." And of course, XY Jet. Very fast horse as well, who came back and won impressively in his debut this year. So certainly, I would expect one of those three to definitely win. Anything can happen in racing, though, and you never know. But I wouldn't be surprised if those three filled out the trifecta. I mean, this, like I said, is our bread and butter. This is what we do best. So moving on next to the Dubai Shima Classic. This is the 12 furlongs on the turf. This really, we really don't have a good stayer coming in this year, so this really is all going to be about, the or I guess it would be local horses there. Technically, we're the foreign horses, I guess, if you look at it when coming in. But, Japan has been very, very good in this race in recent years. Obviously, you can't knock out Aidan O'Brien. He always have to respect his horses. Andre Faub, this is just a who's who. Sir Michael Stout, who's who of the training world, really, when you look at some of these races. So that certainly is another one to look at. Then we're going to look at a race, actually, that has implications for the Kentucky Derby, because it is actually a scoring race for the Kentucky Derby, and that is the UAE Derby. And what's very interesting also about this race, this is the closest one into that 1.25 mile distance that they're all going to run the first Saturday in May. This is 9.5 furlongs, not 10. So it'll be interesting to see, the whole UAE Derby over to the Kentucky Derby angle still has not worked. Interesting to see if anybody does it this year. The horse, of course, everybody's going to be watching is a horse named Mendelssohn, who won the juvenile turf last year, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Aidan O'Brien has already said he is pointing him for the Kentucky Derby, so it'll be interesting to see how he does here in the UAE Derby as his prep race for it. And, obviously he's going to have to do good if he really wants to potentially get into the starting gate for that one. So then we're going to move on to the other thing that we in America are really good at, sprinting on the lawn, although we probably don't have quite a stranglehold as we do of sprinting on the dirt. And, again, Peter Miller is very well represented in this one. Richards Boy, Conquest Tsunami. You've also got Holding Goad. So the U.S. has a pretty good, strong three-way hand here. But, again, anything can happen in these sprint races. They're some of the most exciting races out there to watch. And we really do just, love our sprint races. And they're catching on, I think, a little bit more overseas. And you do see them a little bit more across the globe, but obviously this, sprinting and speed is the U.S.'s game, and so we are expected pretty much to win those races, and if we don't, there's quite a bit of disappointment. And then we're going to move on to the big one, folks. That's right, the Dubai World Cup, and again, this it really should be a race that U.S. probably should dominate in a lot of ways. It'll be interesting to see how Thunder Snow does. Obviously, if everybody remembers him, he was the horse that decided to do the Bucking Bronco show, the first couple of strides out of the gate in the Derby last year. But West Coast probably is going to be this year's if I had to guess, he's going to be kind of like this year's version of Gunrunner. Just a horse that really is starting to really come into his own and show a lot of promise. You've got Gunnevera, who always fires. Forever Unbridled, the mare taking on the boys. This is her final race. She'll be retired after this race, so it'll be, kind of bittersweet there. She always tries. You've just got a lot of really, really good horses in here, but it's probably West Coast's race to lose, but anything can happen. 3 or 4 years ago, everybody thought California Chrome, the year before he won, was supposed to win, and, you had that one horse that came out of nowhere and just won it all. So you never know what's going to happen. And remember, if you're here on the East Coast or anywhere in the U.S., the times are much earlier in the morning as compared to running at night over there, but really, it should be a great evening of racing, a great spectacle. The Sheik always puts on an amazing show over there at Meydan, so certainly something that everybody, hopefully at some point in their life, it's on my bucket list if you're a racing fan, to get out there and experience a Dubai World Cup card. we never like discussing these types of topics, and we never like reporting on them, or never like seeing them. And tragically, we had a very, very tragic incident that happened at Parks this past week with the death of a jockey riding in the race there, and just truly, you know, something you never want to see. And unfortunately, it is something that does happen in this game. And Jose Luis Flores was a journeyman jockey. You know, he wasn't somebody like a Mike Smith or a John Velasquez, somebody that, or Javier Castellano, somebody that you hear of on a regular basis in the big stakes races. He really only had one graded stakes race to his name. But that, you know, he was loved by everybody at the racetrack, and he was a mentor. He was somebody who would always help you out. And it is just, you know, tragic when these things happen, and nobody wants to see a jockey lose his life doing what they love. And as you can see from some of the pictures circulating here, just the sheer outpouring of emotion from the racing family over his death. It's just something we never want to see. And it does, you know, a lot of questions always get brought up whenever this happens. What can the sport do? What can the sport not do? We do ask everybody to potentially donate to, and a ton of the funds that are out there, especially for Jose's family, you know, just to make sure that they are okay. And I'm told there will be a big memorial service actually at Parks on Tuesday. They had to move it actually from the memorial home because of the expected turnout. So Parks will be hosting a special memorial event there for him. And it does kind of bring up to kind of where we are with this week's Doc's discussion points, and I'm not going to get, you know, proselytizing and all that stuff in this, but it does again raise, and some people are going to ask these questions as to what can we do to ensure the absolute safety of the horses and the riders. And it really comes down to universal standards, and universal good standards. If you listened, the Pollock Report also had a very good clip from John Velasquez saying about things that need to be fixed a little bit, as far as having paramedics instead of just EMTs on standbys at the tracks. You know, universal protocols for both the horses and the jockeys. So this way, you know, the best protocols are out there to save as many lives as we can. I know nobody really looks at it from the standpoint of we are never going to prevent 100% fatal breakdowns in racing. Anytime a horse race, there is always that risk. We can do everything we possibly can to mitigate that risk, but tracks in a lot of ways sometimes are not stepping up and doing enough to both protect the horse and protect the rider. And this is something that really has to be discussed at the Racing Commission level. And this is something I have been asking for as long as I started, you know, going to these commission meetings, which is every racing commission should have an independent equine medical director who has some teeth in the rules that they can enforce, and they can call the shots. They still obviously would have to report to the commission, but they are able to set up the standards that all the tracks under that commission are going to have to follow. Same thing on the human side. There should be a doctor somewhere set up that calls the shots and sets things up for these athletes to make sure that they are taken care of the best way possible, both after injuries occur and hopefully to prevent injuries to them, or prevent them from getting back on a horse before they're ready. I know there's been a lot of work with concussion protocols in jockeys recently, and that is very good to see, but you know, we cannot always look back at this in hindsight and say, oh, we could have done this or we could have done that. It's time to be proactive, not reactive, and that's what this sport needs to do, and that's what we have to do to protect the horses and the jockeys. The jockeys, and I will argue this with anybody, they are the toughest athletes in any sport, bar none. They are the toughest athletes. In no other sport do you watch an ambulance follow the participants around the track. You know, that's how dangerous this sport is, but they get up there, they love it, you know, and they show no fear when they ride. And, you know, it's really tragic to see the loss of a jock like this, and everybody in the racing world mourns him and sends out our condolences to family and friends and the entire racing community. And, you know, I know that everybody will band together. There's been just such amazing tributes out there, but people really, if you can donate even a little bit to the Permanent Disabled Jockeys Fund, and to multiple funds that are out there, you can just search them yourself. So that's Doc's discussion point for this week. If anybody wants to chime in on it, feel free to comment on the YouTube page, or send me a line at shelterdoc38@yahoo.com, shelterdoc38@yahoo.com, and those are Doc's discussion points for this episode.
Want a shot at winning $1 million? Who wouldn't? Here's your chance, the new Stay Lucky app from America's Best Racing. First, you've got to download it. It's available on Android and iPhone. Now that you've got it downloaded, just click on the app and set up your account. Once you're logged in, click on this quick tutorial on how to play. Now, you're just about ready to start picking some winners and building a streak. But before you do, a little help for you from some pros. Each week, the best races in the country are loaded onto Stay Lucky. All you gotta do is click Make a Pick, and you've got a fresh menu of races to sort through. You can pick one horse for as many races as you like. The more you play, the faster your streak will grow. As you start stringing together winners, you'll start racking up prizes. Get to that 20 win mark, you're gonna win $1 million. And with the Stay Lucky app, you're always just a click away from everything that's on americasbestracing.net. So, what are you waiting for? Download it, start picking winners, and stay lucky.
So, have you gotten onto the app yet? It's right here. I've got it on my phone. Of course, my streak, of course, is at 0. It's been at 0 because I, for some reason can't seem to pick the winner of anything, except when it's coming to charity, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But it definitely is something you want to check out. I just pulled up exactly who the leaderboard is, and we're going to look at that right now. And check this out. The last time I showed it, it was kind of like a 2. Now you've got Sarah up there, 7 straight winning selections, and definitely pulling out ahead of the field there. A couple of the others have only got 4 and 3, but remember, all it takes is one bad pick, one thing to happen, a stumble out of the gate, a horse getting shut off, a jockey making the wrong decision, and your streak is gone. So everybody is still potentially in the running for the prize money here, which is absolutely phenomenal, up to $1 million. So can you put together a streak like that? Definitely get on your phone. It's a free app to play. Who would not want to do that? I mean, for a free shot, basically at $1 million, just definitely check it out. Certainly something that everybody wants to get in on. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of ways to teach you how to go ahead and read these. You get pros picks. You get pick against the pros. Just tons of fun out there. So why would you not get involved and get out there and get lucky and stay lucky? That's what I say. And speaking of another kind of series that is coming back, and I'm going to pull this up here right here in a second. I mentioned this a little bit when we had an episode a couple of weeks ago, but I am really excited about this coming back. And this is called the Match Series. And this is from the Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred Horsemen's Associations and the Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred Championships. And this is something that really, I think, racing needs more of. And this is a great series. It was in existence probably about, 15, 16 years ago. And it just, because of track infighting and people not wanting to get along and do what's right for the good of the sport as a whole, it kind of fell apart. But all of the stakeholders from, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, they all got together again, and they were able to actually iron out a series of races in multiple divisions, which is really, really cool to see. And so we're going to take a look at some of these races that are going to be starting in the middle of May, and we're going to start with the 3-year-old filly and mare sprint division. So these are the races, and basically any horse is eligible. There's no nomination fee or anything like that, aside from what the normal nomination to run in that stakes race would be at these tracks. And then for every win and every placing, a horse accumulates points. And then based on those number of points, there is up to $450,000 of bonus money that is available at the end of the series for everybody to go ahead and split among the owners and the trainers that have won the various divisions. So there'll be a lot more coming out about this, obviously, as we get closer to the races. But these are the races that are set up. And some of these are ones that everybody knows pretty well. For the 3-year-old and fillies and mares sprinting on the dirt. So you start in May with the Scapat Stakes, then the Regret, then the Dashing Beauty, Satin and Lace, and finally the Roman Rachel Stakes. And you'll notice on the 15th, you'll see as we go through these stakes setups really quick, the 15th and the 16th, that's kind of championship weekend. So that's when all of these things are going to be decided, which is really cool to see. Hopefully we'll see a lot of these horses competing against each other, getting some rivalries going. That's what this sport needs. Something that the fans can follow. Something that the fans can really get behind. And I, for one, I've been preaching for a series nationally, for a long time now. And hopefully maybe they see this work and you'll get something back like the old American Championship Racing Series. But then you go on to the Turf Division, the Very One Stakes, the Penn Ladies Dash, Turf Amazon, Incredible Revenge, and the Sensible Ladies Turf. And then we kind of move on to the 3-year-olds and up, going long on the dirt. So you've got the Salvatore Mile. Everybody remembers that one. The Philip Island kind of dropped down in stature a lot, in the last, 15, 20 years. But who knows? This might prop it back up a little bit. The Monmouth Cup, the Debunda President's Cup at Parks, and of course the Presque Isle Mile happening at Presque Isle Downs. And what's interesting about that is, though it is a dirt division, that last race of the series is actually on a synthetic surface. So it'll be very interesting to see which horses point for that. And you know, if some horses may skip it, thinking they have enough points anyway to potentially get the bonus in that set. Then we kind of move over to the 3-year-old and up, the Sprint Division, the Maryland Sprint Stakes, the Mr. Prospector Stakes at Monmouth, the Hawkinson Stakes at Delaware Park, and then the final two, the Polynesian Stakes at Laurel, and the DeFrancis Memorial Dash at Laurel Park as well. So, you know, certainly going to be a very interesting 3-year-old sprint division, and 3-year-old and up sprint division, I guess I should say. And then finally, we'll look at the 3-year-old sprinting on the turf division. A couple of races. Ben's Cat was known for going in a lot of these races, sadly, before he's retired, and then unfortunately passed away way too soon. Would have been great to see him in a series like this. But the Jim McKay Turf Sprint, the Pennsylvania Governor's Cup, the Parks Dash, the Wolf Hill, and the Laurel Dash Stakes. So you can see all of these ending on that, you know, weekend of the 15th and the 16th. So it really is going to be an absolutely amazing series, and I hope to follow this pretty extensively once these races start, and we'll see exactly how much we can get going here with some fan interest. Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see what they come out with as far as hopefully some promotional things with it, some media things. Hopefully the tracks are really going to get behind it, because that's what you've got to do. You got to get out there. You got to get these tracks behind these events to really market them, to really promote them. Get a huge social media presence going with this, have some contests going on, so I'm hoping all of this stuff is in the works, because that's really what's going to make this work. You know, kudos to the horsemen for putting up the money. You know, really, they didn't have to do it. They could have, you know, continued their own isolationist ways and things like that, but no, they showed that you can come together, reach a compromise on things, and you can do things for the betterment of the sport, which is really what this is all about. And I'm hoping this is not a one-and-done thing. I'm hoping that, you know, come next year they all say, no, we don't want to do it anymore, or it messed too much up with things. You know, you got to give this a chance to really start to work. And I think if you do that, you'll definitely see a huge improvement, a lot more fan interest in the sport, but you've got to make sure you market it the right way to the fans and really keep the fans engaged. So really looking forward to seeing what this match series will do, and I really am hoping that some of these bigger racing entities out there are paying attention to what's going on with the match series, because you know, you can do this on a national level. You can make it work. You just have to drop your egos at the door and sit down and do what's good for the betterment of the sport, not necessarily your own organization. Because if you do what's good for the betterment of the sport, everything else falls into place, and hopefully, you know, eventually people will realize that. So one more thing here before speaking of leagues and things like that. I did want to point out, again, Brooklyn Backstretch, Teresa Gennaro, this is the 10th year of their Derby kind of fantasy charity league, where everybody gets to pick horses, and then based on how many points they acquire in the Road to the Derby races, those same people obviously get points in their stable. And the top three people that end up winning this contest have the money that is donated basically to split between the Thoroughbred Aftercare or Backstretch Road, or some sort of racing charity of their choice. And by some miracle of God, I somehow have managed, thanks to Noble Indy's win in Louisiana Derby yesterday, to at least right now, and I don't know how the Sunland Derby played in all of this, but at least for the moment, hopped back into first place. So I stuck my head back out there in front as we kind of go midway on the final turn before hitting that final stretch of the major preps and then the Derby itself. So right now I am in the lead, which I'm very happy and proud of, because I am playing for Pennsylvania Racehorse Rehoming Rehabilitation and Rescue, a wonderful aftercare organization. So hopefully we can get some money for them, and we did get to pick our second-tier horses this week, so it's a lot of fun. Check it out, Brooklyn Backstretch, just search it. It's a great blog that Teresa puts out. She writes on a lot of things racing, mostly in the New York sector, but certainly is not afraid to tackle any topic at all. So that, you know, is something really fun, and I'm glad to say that I'm right up there again. And that's really going to kind of do it for this episode of Doc's Racing Digest. I do thank everybody for tuning in and joining in, and if you happen to be watching this on tape delay or taped or replay, because it will be up on the YouTube channel, thanks again, and give me your thoughts. This is all a work in progress. I'm trying to work some more educational things in. We've got some of that stuff coming down the pipeline as far as just really giving some good fan education out there. And you know, I'm not afraid to tackle any topic, and I will give my opinion. My opinion may be in the minority and maybe in the majority. It may prove out to be wrong, but that's what makes racing, is opinions and getting the fans' opinion, and that's something that hopefully this industry will realize as we go forward, that if you want to keep the industry alive, you got to have people like us, the fans, to go ahead and support your products. So again, I am Doc. Thanks for tuning in to Doc's Racing Digest. We will see you next week with all the results of the Dubai World Cup card, and until then, in all the photo finishes of your life, may you always come out on the right side of the head bob. We will see you next week.
One of the racehorse rescues that is very near and dear to Doc and many people in the Mid-Atlantic region is Pennsylvania Racehorse Rehoming, Rehabilitation, and Rescue. Check out PAR today and see all the amazing things that they have done as they take all these horses from the racetrack to the ribbons and to wonderful second careers. Support PAR today. Is a proud member of the organization Thoroughfan, the only nationally recognized fan organization for thoroughbred racing. Check out thoroughfan.com today and find out all the amazing things there are to learn about this great sport of thoroughbred horse racing, and also how to become a member and add your voice today. Thoroughfan, giving the fans a voice.